Today, I want to take a closer look at Nvidia. We can see it was pretty much a red day when most other companies were green today. Nvidia's finished the day down 2%, but at one point, the stock was down roughly 4%. On today's episode, I want to take a closer look at some recent updates we saw today. A lot of big semiconductor news came out today from Google, new chips, Intel, a new AI accelerator as well. So let's take a closer look in today's episode.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
Now, the first thing I want to take a closer look at is this pretty cool collaboration with Google. So, Nvidia and Google Cloud collaborate to accelerate AI development. And the way they're going to help accelerate is they're teaming up with startup companies. So, for those that are not familiar, both Google and NVIDIA have some form of startup inception program where these companies sometimes even go and invest into some of these companies that are starting off right now because they believe they might go somewhere in the future. So this collaboration brings NVIDIA's Inception programs for startups and the Google for Startups Cloud program. The qualified members from NVIDIA's Inceptions will have an accelerated path to using Google's cloud infrastructure with access to Google Cloud credits that can be used on NVIDIA's DGX Cloud. So obviously this makes perfect sense, especially as right now we're in this AI market, right? We have so many AI startups. Unfortunately, we don't know which AI startups are going to succeed. But one way that these companies can help and make sure that they are winners at the end of the day is one, first, they do some form of investment into them. Or if they don't do an investments, they kind of lend off or give these credits off, right? So if you are a startup company and you kind of meet these programs, you're able to use Google's cloud infrastructure and NVIDIA's AI solutions, be it hardware, via software, via whatever else they offer. So now imagine 5 years from now, if that startup becomes a multi-billion-dollar company, guess where they're going to continue to use the solutions, right? They built their foundation on Google Cloud. They built their foundation using NVIDIA's AI hardware solutions. So once they get bigger, they're going to just continue to use those solutions. Obviously, there's going to be times where they might switch off, but most of the time, I want to say this is the end goal for a lot of these inception programs is just to bring more developers into the ecosystem of Google Cloud and NVIDIA's AI solutions. So I think this is a big win. Nothing that would overall move any stock in my opinion, but it just continues to bring developers into both these companies. Outside of that, Google also is having an event today and I believe this week in Las Vegas. I might cover that in another video. And before we go any further, guys, I should have started this episode off. Thank you. We just hit 40,000 subscribers. I can't believe we're here. I think at the beginning of this year, we started at 30,000. So I'm hoping you guys are enjoying all this NVIDIA products, all these AMD videos, every semiconductor video, AI video that I cover. I hope I'm bringing much value to you, especially since they're all free. Now back to the episode, right? We do have NVIDIA and Google kind of increase their collaborations even more. So Google is releasing various large language models like Gemma, for example, and open models, and they're being optimized in NVIDIA's AI platform. So again, we continue to see these kind of collaborations together. Gemini, which is more for the consumer space and is their closed model, you can actually optimize them using NVIDIA's GPU on the consumer side. So more collaborations like that. Google also announced that they're going to increase their offerings of NVIDIA's H100 with this new product called the A3 Mega coming next month. Outside of that, Google did announce that they're going to be using NVIDIA's Blackwell platform for Google Cloud in the next year with two variants. First, the HGX B200, which is NVIDIA's GPU with an x86 CPU, but they're also going to be using NVIDIA's GB200, which is that Grace Blackwell 200, which is NVIDIA's CPU and NVIDIA's GPU. So pretty interesting to see again a lot of these cloud service providers now opting for both the B200 HGX system and the GB200. And this is something that we talked about in yesterday's episode. The GB200 is one of the most bullish items for a lot of these analysts. And I personally believe that's right and something I'm very bullish for the overall company. Now, going with Google, we can see the stock was up roughly 1.2% today. They did announce a lot of cool stuff. Again, I might be doing a video on them later on. If you guys want me to do that, let me know on the comments below. That's how I know what type of videos to produce for you guys. So Google did announce their first custom ARM-based CPU designed for the data center. And we've seen everybody else do this. Amazon has been doing it for a long time. Microsoft just announced it. So now Google is entering here into the CPU space, and they will be available later this year. Obviously, this I think the competition here is really for AMD and Intel right now, as more of these cloud server providers are creating their own CPU solution. Great news for ARM. I want to just take a closer look if ARM moved today. ARM stock was pretty much down today, sitting at $126. But this new platform is used Neoverse V2. Neoverse is ARM's CPU platform for like the data center market. This is where, like I mentioned, AWS made their Graviton. Even Nvidia uses their Neoverse for their Grace CPU. So this CPU is going to be meant for general purpose workloads and also AI training and inferencing on the CPU side. So a lot of great news there from Google. There was something that maybe some might consider a competition to NVIDIA. So Google also talked about their AI hypercomputers and more of their overall AI infrastructure. The first thing they really talk about was G Cloud TPU version 5 performance. And the Cloud TPU is a form of AI accelerator that is used for training and inferencing some of the largest models. Their V5 is their performance model, and it's their most recent solution right now. So obviously, some people might be seeing this as a competition to NVIDIA. I personally don't see it. 5 generations later, and they're still using plenty of NVIDIA's AI chips. And like I mentioned in the previous segment, we saw that they expanded their H100 GPU capabilities. They also are bringing the Blackwell GPU. And we can see even customers that they talk about here. Customers are both leveraging Google's Cloud TPU and GPU solutions in general. So at the end of the day, these TPUs are only good for X amount of things, where a GPU is great at a lot of things. So we are going to continue to see the needs for GPUs from NVIDIA. So I think the biggest player here to kind of have a lot of competition is the CPU players like AMD and Intel, with Google announcing their AXION processor. Now, talking about Intel was up almost 1% for the day. Intel also had an event, and on this event, they announced a lot of things. I might do another video on them later on if you guys want me to. But for now, I'll just cover the AI accelerator and the AI CPU that are meant for the data center market. So again, let me know in the comments below if you want me to take a closer look at Intel. So Intel today introduced their Gaudi 3 AI accelerator. I've talked about Gaudi before. They definitely compare it to the A100 and sometimes the H100. Intel mentions that the Gaudi 3 AI accelerators delivers 50% better inference, 40% on average better power efficiency than NVIDIA's H100 at a fraction of a cost. And this is, again, when you see this, you might say, hey, look, competition is heating up. But is it really? Let me talk to you, right, guys? How is competition really heating up for NVIDIA if they're comparing it to H100 when NVIDIA is getting ready to release the Grace, the Blackwell 200 in the upcoming quarters, and then next year they're going to have the next iteration already. So obviously the competition is there in forms of the fraction of the cost of the chips, but we've heard from NVIDIA before that it's no longer just the cost of the chip, it's the total cost of ownership from everything else, and that's where NVIDIA is providing the best total cost of ownership. While their GPU might sell at a high price, the kind of money that they save for you in the long term with everything else, from the software solutions that they offer, from the kind of inferencing power, from everything else that they offer in the future, you shouldn't look at the cost of the chip, but you should look at the cost of the total system. So maybe some investors might have been worried with the Gaudi 3. Let me just say, I'm personally not worried at all, but that doesn't mean that Intel investors shouldn't be happy. This market is pretty big. There's still a supply chain issue, supply constraint market. So Intel investors can definitely benefit from the AI accelerator. Just because it's good for Intel, it doesn't mean that it's not mutually exclusive that it needs to be bad for Nvidia. Both it could be both Intel and both Nvidia can win with the overall market right now. What I did find interesting here is with Gaudi 3, you didn't really see any big cloud server providers announce that they're partnering up with Intel to use it. We just talk about OEMs, so the server makers, which are going to be using these to make their overall AI data center offerings. And it seems like this is more meant for the enterprise space opposed to anything else. And this is probably a great way for Intel to kind of cross sell their CPU and their AI accelerators to enterprise market instead, where I do believe they see a nice growth opportunity. They did announce an intention to create an open platform for enterprise AI. Like I mentioned, it seems like the enterprise market is where they really want to go. They talk about collaborations with SAP, with Red Hat, and VMware. Now, the Gaudi 3 is expected to be a lot faster and have way more memory than its predecessor. I'm pretty sure I butchered that, which was the Gaudi 2. And we can also see this is meant to deal with even large language models like the GPT-3 that has about 175 billion parameters. Now, outside of the Intel Gaudi 3, and I really enjoy that picture, it's insane how excited I get for overall semiconductor solutions. The second thing that Intel really announced that I think investors should see is they announced their next generation of server CPU. They're calling it Intel Xeon 6 processor. In these processors, they're releasing two. The first one is expected to come out later this quarter, and they call that the Sierra Forest, which is E-cores. So this is going to be more of an efficiency, power performance chip, right? It's not the best performance, but it's the best performance with power. So very low power usage system. The one I think is one that maybe AMD investors should be not concerned, but at least somewhat an eye on is their P core, which is the Granite Rapids, which is expected to come out maybe a quarter or two after the E cores. And this is again meant for performance system and is really looking to be a big player in the CPU inferencing space. So I think this one is a big win for Intel, in my opinion. And again, we continue to see competition heat up in the CPU server space. Now, just to kind of finish off this episode, we can see AMD was up roughly 0.5% today. Overall, a lot of great, exciting news for the semiconductor space, but at the end of the day, Nvidia seems to be the real winner right now, and earnings season is starting back up, so make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time. Before we go any further, I just want to say thank you all for the amazing support we are getting in this channel. We're closing into 40,000 subs. That is insane. So if you haven't and you are enjoying the content, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. Finally, if you want to support this channel a little bit more, check out my special offer at fool.com/Jose. Now back to today's episode.